In Cape Town, the conference hosted by the National Union Metal Workers of South Africa was supposed to start today. The Labour Court has ruled it can't go ahead without a group of office bearers who were suspended 2 weeks before the event was due to begin. The gathering is supposed to happen at the Cape Town International Convention Centre. Terry Bell is a Labour journalist, someone who has many years' experience at these conferences and reporting on our Labour movement. Terry, good afternoon to you. You were at the Convention Centre earlier today. What happened when you got there?
Good afternoon, Stephen. No, I was there yesterday as well when it was supposed to start and nothing happened, and I just hung around, and there was supposed to be a media accreditation centre where there was a choir, absolutely brilliant choir from Khayelitsha, who'd been hired to sing the Internationale and Solidarity Forever to the audience, but there was no audience and there was no meeting because the conference, the 11th National Congress, had been interdicted because of certain suspensions of a number, up to 50, I believe, of officials within the union. And it couldn't go ahead. So I went along this morning, and again nothing was happening, but more and more security began to pour in from two security companies. And there were only two journalists there, myself and Pulakani Magubani from Fin24. And after a while, two of these really, I mean, I'm not exactly small, but they were huge. Chaps came up and said, would we follow them? And I said, oh, to Pulakani, perhaps they're going to give us some breakfast because we've been there from very early on. Instead, they took us outside and said, you're not allowed in. So we demanded to go in. We said they had no right. They could not stop us from going into Cape Town's International Convention Centre. They could, if NUMSA said so, not go into their hall or any of their meeting rooms, if there were any. And they finally called the national spokesperson, Pakamili Hlubi Majola, and she came and said NUMSA had the right to throw everyone out, and the media was banned. All media were banned from the convention centre for the time that NUMSA was there. Totally illegal, totally ridiculous, totally over the top, and actually a very worrying precedent. So we left, went round the side, and we tried to get in another door in order to go and get a cup of coffee at the local convention centre coffee bar. And were barred from that as well until finally we managed to argue that we were just going to get coffee. And so we went down and had coffee, but of course we couldn't then use the toilet because that was on the ground floor part, which was secured by the security people.
Terry, I must say, I mean, there are two things that strike me. The one is I've been to that convention centre, and I imagine it is private property, but NUMSA haven't bought it, as far as I know. They're only renting certain halls. And the second thing is, in my experience, your experience is greater than mine, unions are pretty media-friendly. I mean, they're usually quite welcoming to journalists. I've never heard of a union treating a journalist, especially, if I may say, someone with your history, in this way.
Well, no, this is perfectly true, and it's totally ridiculous and something I've never heard of. Mind you, this is the second time I have been evicted by NUMSA. In 2008, I was the only journalist at the Congress in which elected Irvin Jim, and I was sitting at the back of the hall when he was elected and went up onto the podium. When he spotted me, he asked that I be removed. And I mean, two of the marshals who came along, whom I knew, said, oh, Comrade Terry, I don't know why he's throwing you out. You've heard it all before, which is perfectly true. But I'm not going back on that, but what I'm saying is that there is a tendency, and there has been a tendency within NUMSA to be, or this leadership, to be somewhat high-handed. What they've done now is totally without precedent and something that the convention centre should look at, because they brought in two private security companies who actually took over the security of the entire ground floor of the conference centre, not just hall number 2, which was laid out for about 1,800, 2,000 delegates, but the upstairs there was supposed to be the media accreditation centre, which never opened. It was locked. So those were the only two areas, as far as I know, and of course the restaurant for snacks, etc., for delegates. But those, as far as I'm concerned, were the only areas that NUMSA had the right to have any say over.
I haven't heard anything from NUMSA actually since the suspensions and since the court ruling last week. We don't even know. I understand, I think there was a suggestion there might be a big meeting this morning, a leadership meeting. I don't know if what's going to happen. Is this the beginning of really big divisions in the biggest trade union in South Africa? It's a really important union in our society.
Well, it's an important union, not only an important union, it's very important throughout the labour movement, but also has lots of implications socially, economically, and every other way. Yes, it does look as though we're heading towards some sort of fragmentation because no one seems to be giving way, and there seems to be a sort of almost an atmosphere of paranoia. I mean, why keep them in? We weren't actually doing anything. The only reason for turfing us out, I suppose, was to stop us speaking to delegates to find out what members actually thought, perhaps. I don't know. We didn't even try to get into the hall. We were just hanging around because we'd been hanging around for 2 days.
Well, Terry Bell, thank you very much indeed. I do appreciate it. He, of course, is a Labour journalist, been reporting on South Africa's Labour movement for many, many years. Just to reiterate the point, how important NUMSA is, of course, to our society as the biggest trade union in South Africa. More developments on that. Happy to give them a chance to respond as well if they do become available for a conversation on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405. Well,